Glass is a little dirty. Oh, that's better. So this is the 4th day of our 7-day retreat here in Southern Dharma. Interesting, isn't it? When we first came here, things were dry. The creek was hardly running. We thought rain would be so wonderful. Right? And perhaps the first day it was. The second day it perhaps was too. But by the third day, some of you or some of us might have go, when's it going to stop? You know, it sort of got a little old. I'm sick of carrying the umbrellas around and getting in and out. And we yearned for sunny days. Right. There it is. That's the teaching on the worldly winds in a nutshell. We want something, we get it, we're happy, but then something happens. It kind of loses its zing. Or it becomes a little problematic. That which we thought was the source of our happiness becomes a little problematic. And right away the mind yearns, creates a yearning for something different that it thinks will solve the problem. Right? And it just goes on like this. It's interesting, I think my glasses are fogging up because of me. Really me, but we talk that way. So good. We are on our 3rd day, our 4th day. And yesterday we had our introductory teachings about investigating the mind, looking into the mind. And we spent the rest of the day, and especially last night, having some direct experience of this investigation into what is our mind, and many of us had a learning experience. It is not what we think it is. We learned that it is not that difficult. When one looks in the right direction to see clearly what is going on. And we learned experientially, and will continue to learn because it's a process that must continue, that when we look directly into the mind and investigate it, we will see its nature. We will see what it is in essence. It is not because we are Buddhists that we see it. Everybody and anybody who looks in their mind sees it. Because it is the essence, the nature, and the characteristics of the mind. And as we learned yesterday, at its essence, when you look right at it, we perceive directly that there is no thing there. It is empty of all thingness. Right? Instead, we find it is vast and spacious. These are just words. We learned that it had a basic aliveness and lucidity and clarity to it. And we also saw that its characteristic of its movement is thoughts, feelings, perceptions. Right? Now, why is that, as I said last night, and this is very important to understand, why is this, why did Shapka say, now listen further, all my best beloved sons and daughters, no matter what system of mind training you practice, unless you realize the nature of your mind, severing its root, you miss the point. So in these pristine teachings and practices that have been passed down to us generation after generation, we are the recipients not only of these teachings about the mind, but also how to directly realize it. It must be recognized. We have to recognize the nature of our mind, the nature of thoughts, the nature of self. Why? So we will not be fooled any longer. We suffer because we are fooled. Because we totally misperceive what's going on. We have impure perception. We take things at its most shallow nature, which is appearance. Right? Well, it appears that way. It appears I have issues. It appears I have problems. It appears that I have thoughts. It appears that I have feelings. It appears that I have memories. It appears that I have a self. It appears that I have a my, me, mine. Right? It appears that way, doesn't it? Yeah. And we think it appears like that with everybody else. But all you have to do is investigate, look into that which appears a certain way, and you will clearly see, if you persist, you will clearly see the true reality, the true nature of how things really are. Then you are liberated from your delusions. You are liberated from your ignorance. You no longer are living in false perceptions of reality. And now you really have a basis for living a true life. Up to this point, we are only kind of good actors. We've turned in our worldly script for a Dharma script. But we're still following a script. When you know the nature of your own mind, you're not following a script anymore. Now you know. Right? You can throw away the script. You don't need to live with a script. You don't need to live with an agenda. You don't need to live with a self. You don't need to live with issues. You can be unfettered. Speaking to somebody this morning, and most of you probably know it already, but it bears repeating. I talked about the lion's gaze. I'm sure you've all heard me talk about that before. But I have to say it again because it is true. Okay? The dog, that little loving dog, you throw sticks and it runs after them, right? It just loves to chase sticks, right? It'll chase sticks until it's exhausted. It says, I won't get moved. And you throw it a stick and it'll still go running after it, right? But the lion, the king of beasts, sitting so regally. Right? You've seen them? They just sit. Probably the first stick goes flying by. They don't even move. Maybe the second stick goes flying by. They don't even move. The third stick goes flying by. They just turn their head. And they look right at you. Right, Jun? And Jun stops throwing sticks immediately. Right? All that lion's got to do is look right at you. Right? Doesn't have to do anything, does it? Just that gaze. Okay? Now, what does that mean? That has a couple of meanings. One meaning, we could say, oh, there we are. Right? Yeah, that's us. The thoughts come up, the feelings come up, the issues come up, and what do? We just chase after them. Right? Chase after them. From morning till night. Even when we're exhausted and we're lying in bed, we'll still chase after them. Right? And we wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we're stressed out. Right? Because all day long, all night long, we're just chasing after those sticks. Our mind keeps throwing up sticks, and we keep chasing them. Right? So that describes sort of the human condition. But the lion, in this case, the practitioner, the king of beasts, is not fooled. Is not fooled, is not even interested. Right? The king of beasts, chasing after sticks. Right? No, it saves its energy. It saves its energies for something much more beneficial to it. Right? It just doesn't go running around like a puppy dog, chasing after sticks. Conserves its energies for its true purpose. That kind of mind, that kind of regal mind, which doesn't chase after sticks. And believe me, and you all know it, if you look at what your mind's throwing up, it is sticks. Every now and then it may throw up a nugget. All right? Every now and then there may be something worth picking up. But right, I mean, what, 99%, 95%? I mean, it just sticks. It's like, sometimes you go to people's houses who have dogs and they have these kind of old, foul kind of tennis balls around. Like, dog's been slobbering over, Pick it up, the dog just... It's the most precious thing in the world. Just goes running after that. Right. Okay. So this lion's gaze not only is a metaphor, but it's also it also tells us how we practice, and we'll be getting into that. Right. Again. Some of you, maybe many of you, last night got a glimpse into the true nature of your mind. Not like it's a thing, but like an experience. Many people said, well, there's no thing there. And when you said, well, when you experience that no thingness of the mind, how do you feel? And everybody said, what? Peaceful, immediately. You didn't have to work it, you didn't have to develop it, you didn't have to think about it. Immediately. Because that is the nature of our mind. Thoughts are like pop, 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 pop. But mind, as you learn and are learning, is vast. There's so much room. It's boundless. It's boundless. And when you recognize it and you cultivate that, then that is the nature of your everyday experience, and the things that are arising and passing are passing through that vastness. That is why you can sit like a lion and be undisturbed. And if a thought ever becomes a little annoying or pesky, you just look at it. And when you look at a thought, and we'll be doing that today, it immediately reveals its nature. See, most people want to get rid of thoughts, and you have to stop trying to get rid of thoughts. It is the nature of the mind to think. It throws up thoughts. The same way, the person throwing the stick is just throwing up thoughts, right? Isn't that true? I mean, has anybody here, for all their work to get rid of their thoughts, has anybody done it? Right? No. And it's not because, you haven't tried. Because you can't stop them. That is their nature. It is the nature of the mind. It thinks. And that, as we've said yesterday, is a wonderful thing. We wouldn't have these teachings, would we? If not for thoughts. But these are pristine, pure thoughts, in the sense that they point directly to the true nature of reality and help us free ourselves from delusions and ignorance. So these are beneficial thoughts, we might say. And the problem is, most thoughts are not beneficial, and many thoughts, or certain thoughts, are downright harmful. They are toxic. They cause us suffering, and they cause us to create suffering for other people, don't they? It all begins in the mind. All the violence in the world, all the hatred in the world, all the cruelty in the world, all the indifference in the world begins in the human mind. It doesn't begin out there. It's not in the ether. That's why if we're ever going to change the world, we need to change the minds of human beings. So this process begins with recognizing the nature of one's mind. Okay? That's the first step. The recognition of that this mind is inherently empty. It is not a thing. It has no beginning. It has no end. It has no origin. It has no definition. There is absolutely nothing that can be said about it. It is not a thing. And yet, here it is. Alive, clarifying everything. It is miraculous. And in the Dzogchen tradition, thoughts, feelings, perception that occur at the level of the characteristics is called the play of the mind. The mind plays around with thoughts. Right? Throws one this one, throws that one. It's the play. How does a grandparent relate to the play of their grandchildren? They enjoy it. They just play. It's just play. That's the metaphor. Just play. Just a display of the magical display of the mind, it's called. That's all. Nothing to be disturbed about. But if you believe your thoughts are concrete, real things, right? And if you believe the self that is perceiving the thought is a real thing, You put those two together, and you have the making of a difficult life. Right. You put two fundamental misperceptions together, what are you going to get? Right? Is that clear? So meditation is about that transformation of, but at this level of practice, it is about this really transformative view that we really see the true nature of reality. Again, with external reality, right? So now we are all perceiving external reality, the reality that is present to our five senses, right? Which is the world we see and hear and smell and taste and touch, right? That reality, right, in its appearance of permanence and solidity and thingness, entityness, right? It appears that way, doesn't it? Is that clear? Right. Now, it is only through analysis, right, analytical thinking that we can, like we do, we can take it apart, right? We can say, oh yes, this flower. Anybody ever read or heard Thich Nhat Hanh? He's been selling that one for 40 years, right? But it's true. It's a good product, right? He will say, this flower that appears to be a flower has no existence separate from what? From the seedling, from the seed, from the earth, from the previous plant, from the sky, from the rain, right? All of that is in that, right? This flower that appears to be a separate thing, in truth can be understood to be not, right? Is that clear? It is made up of many parts. Many causes and conditions have caused this flower to come into being, right? As well as it is impermanent, right? We can watch this flower of the days and we will see it change. It is now in the full fruition, but it will eventually die, right? And return, if we allow it, to the earth, right? As well as we can see just before us, we can look at a different way and say that thing we call a flower is not a flower, because if you take away, or if you just look at all its parts, if I pull off every leaf and I pull off the stamen, and I pull off the petals and I pull off that and I lay it all out, it no longer has the appearance of a flower, does it? It actually has the appearance of garbage, right? Can you see it? If it was like this, you go, oh, the flower. Let's put it up on the altar, right? But if it was just a bunch of parts, you'd say garbage. Let's sweep it out, right? I don't know who put this up here, but I mean, would you put up? You could have put it up just all petals and stamens and leaves and just spread it around up here, right? I mean, right? It's the same thing, isn't it? But when it takes this shape and form, we call it a flower. We say it's lovely and it's meaningful and all that, right? And all of a sudden, if it's the same thing, but we spread it around its parts, we want nothing to do with it. As that is said in the Dharma teachings, all your relatives, they love you, they love you, they love you, they cherish you, they want to be around you. You're not dead for an hour, and already they want your body out, right? Get this dead body out of here. Isn't that the truth? That is the truth. That's the depth of the love. Now, I'm not recommending, that we mummify people. I'm not saying that. But it is interesting, the ways of human beings. Again, why this meditation is so important. Because as opposed to the analytical way, and let me just say, and I am not a scientist, but I believe there are like microscopes and things that you can actually look into something that appears solid and see that it's just atoms moving around, or You can see science was not my favorite subject. But right, I mean, you can actually see the empty, non-self nature of matter that appears solid, right? So again, in the old days, you know, they didn't have electron microscopes and things, but yet they knew this. Now, how did they know it? Well, one way, with the world of things, we can do it through this analytical reasoning, the way we just went through it. But, and this is why this meditation is so important, we have something very close to us that we can directly investigate, that we can put under the microscope and directly perceive its empty nature, right? And that is our mind, right? This is something all of us can directly intuit. It doesn't have to be inferred, like it has to be with the world of phenomena and its appearance. We can directly see into our mind, like some of you saw yesterday, and you could clearly experience that that which we thought was solid is not. Right? And not only that, when you have that experience, you also have what might be called some kind of feeling or emotional experience, which is, as people said, a deep relaxation, peace, openness, spaciousness, you know. Again, I'm not a scientist, but I don't know if you get that when you look through the electron microscope. Right? But you get it when you look into your own mind. So this is why meditation, and especially this meditation of looking deeply into, is so important. It is our way to directly intuit the empty nature of appearances. In this case, the appearance of self, the appearance of thought, the appearance of emotion, the appearance of issues, the appearance of all kinds of mental formations, of memories, all these things that we think are solid things, we can directly see they're not. Is that clear? That's why this is in these heart traditions, these practice traditions of Buddhism, this is why meditation, and especially insight meditation, that meditation that looks deeply into reality, into phenomena, is the heart and the most direct. That's why it's called a direct path, because it doesn't deal with antidotes. It doesn't deal with, you know, changing and working with and right all that you know, spiritual work. It doesn't deal with any of that. It's based on that, as I said the first and second day. It's not like none of that's important, but it is a practice that goes right directly to the heart of where we're stuck. Any questions? I mean, it's pretty clear, isn't it? Yeah. But if you have any questions, I mean, anybody, I mean, even, yes, Steve. By the way, Steve is a philosophy professor, so we cut him a little slack here.
So things that aren't solid, they have effects, and I get that we're using language here that, like, we can't push too hard, but like a cloud, right, might not be solid, but it has effects.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like credit rating isn't a solid thing,
right.
It has effects.
Right.
Things like that, and so.
Right.
Like mental phenomena, you know, looking at a feeling or looking at a thought. In some cases, right, at least my experience is if I look at it, or if I just sit with it or observe it, and I recognize, right, that it's impermanent, it doesn't, that you can just kind of see through it. I mean, that's different things, impermanent and see through it, but it just dissipates. But other times, right, it seems like the effect is still there, even if I can recognize it as not solid, like you're saying.
Right. So I think I know where you're going. So let me say, first of all, again, the first day we talked, second day we talked about law, cause, and effect. Okay. So when we talk about this world of appearances, this world of relativity, the law is cause and effect, right? Okay. That's how things operate. Whether it's in the mental universe, right? Things operate according to causes and conditions, right? It is through our understanding or our lack of understanding that we are either Buddhas or we are suffering sentient beings, right? It's how we relate to this phenomena, right? So if we take our weather very seriously, right? As we said earlier, one could have been very happy when it rained, and then gotten a little frustrated with it, right? And discontent and dissatisfaction could have entered the mind, right? And then when one woke up one morning and it was sunny, one could have been happy, but then it could sort of warm up a bit and get a little uncomfortable. And one could remember, and yearn for the coolness of cooler weather and the heat and be uncomfortable. You see what I'm saying? So it is, or, remember the lion? The lion's fine, right? Because the lion is inside experience. When it's rainy, we get wet. When it's sunny, we get dry. When it's cool, we're cold. When it's hot, we sweat. Right? That's just the natural, it's inside of experience. It's not a self that's outside of experience, right? Always, we need to look deeply, Steve, into what really is causing my suffering. What's really causing my discontent. So let me say that first. Is that clear? Secondly, and again, if you read the retreat description, right, it said very clearly what this retreat's about, right? And I want to say very clearly, these are in Buddhism deep teachings. They sound very simple, but they are deep and profound. And you're absolutely right. It's hard to be a lion, right, if your mind is a monkey, right? It's hard to be a lion if your mind is a puppy chasing after it. It doesn't just like go, right? So there is cultivation. So one, please, even though I'm giving you teachings of a certain type here, which hopefully will be meaningful to you, that doesn't mean, right, that if you have certain issues that really still grab you by the throat, right? Now, Chicken Little would say the sky is full. And we'd start just running around and just let's run down. I think it looked maybe a piece of wood fell on the roof there. Is that, yeah, I saw something kind of come down. The roof is still okay. The roof is still okay. Right? We're relaxed. Even if the sky was falling. Gunther, can you just calmly check and see if the sky is falling? We're not Chicken Little. Most of us are Chicken Little, right? Something happens, oh my God. I can't believe what's happening. I can't believe she did this or didn't do that, or, right? Or, it's like, or I didn't do this, or done my meditations. It's like, be a lion. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, maybe the sky is falling. Isn't that possible? Yeah. So is that clear, Steve? If stuff still has you by the throat, right? You got to deal with it that way. You're not strong enough yet. Your mindfulness and your concentration and your stability is not strong enough always with certain things in your life. So they may need more from the medicine. May need a different remedy. Okay. There may be things that are going on in you that still may need remedies. Is that clear? So it's important that, again, that you understand that in your own practice and also in your work with a teacher. Again, we can hear teachings, but and they can be very meaningful and profound, but if they don't really work for us, then so what, right? So we want to be able to, have the appropriate teaching for the appropriate, the appropriate medicine for the appropriate condition or disease. Is that clear? But it works the other way. There are people in this room that I get on because it's 25 years later and they're still working their inner child. They're already older. I mean, it's like, let me see, you started working on your inner child 25 years ago, and the child was 5 then, it's 30 now. And you're still treating it like it's 5. I mean, come on. If you're doing inner child work, it is healing work. It is transformative work. If you do it consistently, which doesn't mean now and then or when the child is crying, but you do it consistently like a loving parent, it will heal. And it won't take 30 years. If it's taking 30 years, there's something wrong. Is that clear? So it works the other way. We can be attached to our remedies and not realize, I don't need that remedy anymore, right? It's like, it's like if you have a wound, at a certain point, if you've been taking care of it, it is healed. Now, there still may be a scar, right? You see, there still may be a scar there to show you, that you had a wound, but you don't still have to be putting on the antibiotic creams or whatever else, right? You don't have to do that anymore. It's healed. And there's some people who are, it's 20 years later, and they're still putting on the antibiotic cream. That sounds a little harsh, but it's the truth. Certain diseases, physical and mental, need good remedies. If the doctor gives you a remedy, take it as prescribed. Right? If the only time, if you have found that from your childhood there's a part of you that's very wounded in fear, in anger, in hurt and sadness, right? You don't only attend to it when it's crying or getting in your way. You attend to it every day, like any good parent, right? And when you attend to it every day, that child will heal, and you'll know it's healed because it's growing up. It's joining you. It's no longer frozen out here in space and time, stuck in its suffering. That's the problem. It's, we left it, we abandoned that part of ourselves and left it out here to dry all by itself for decades. Is that clear? And now that we recognize it, we have to take this part of ourselves and bring it here so we can integrate, so it's part of us. Is that clear? I mean, let's get clear with each other. This path is a path of wholeness. If you feel like you're in parts, your grown-up part, your child part, your healthy part, your unhealthy part, you're not whole, you're not integrated, right? So this practice should, over time, give us a sense of integration. We're no longer in parts. We're no longer in competing parts and struggling parts. Right? You know what I'm saying? One part is healthy and eating right, and the other part says, why can't we have ice cream for dinner? Right? Can you see? It's like two parts struggling with each other. I know that appears normal, but it's not. This practice over time will give you a sense of wholeness, integration. You'll feel like one thing. You won't have lots of different tendencies pulling you this way and that way. It'll all be very clear, straight ahead. Is that clear? Now that's a process. Okay? That's a process. Everybody here is in process. Everybody here is in a different place. But please understand, I'm saying this to you so you understand that this is what the journey is about. We want to claim these different parts of ourselves. We want to claim these disparate parts of ourselves and bring them together. Right? In what? In our path in life. In our aspiration. You know, let's get everybody on board. But if you're the only one on board for spiritual transformation of the Bodhisattva way, and you still got parts of you that just want to party and go play or indulge themselves, or you're going to be back and forth and struggling and feel. This nod to let me know I'm not rambling on up here. Is that a question or is that a big nod?
That's a question.
Uh-huh.
So, does that mean that some of the integration really takes place, like in whatever language you want to put on, that the opportunity to practice non-self really doesn't exist?
No, I'm not saying that. The way you people take things. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, see, it's interesting. I mean, when to be honest, when I encountered, let's say, when I first began back in the late 60s, it was Zen, right to the heart of things. All this others, all the remedies, all the levels, all the working on, just right for the heart, okay? So that was that teaching, okay? Feelings, emotions, inner child, nonsense. Just wake up, okay? So that's one path, okay? Now, when I went to India and met my Tibetan teacher, who was a Dzogchen master, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know what Dzogchen was. It was very different, right? And it didn't matter to him that I practiced Zen for 7 years. Okay? He didn't even know what Zen was. But also they had their traditional way of doing things, which you began with the 4 mind turnings, you began with cultivation of bodhicitta and compassion, you did 500,000 of this and that, and then you went through single point of concentration training, and then you went through, boom, 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 right? And at the end, you got this. So it was very different. It's like the opposite. So based on that, I would say, a little of both. I mean, everyone is here. Everybody here is receiving these teachings and practices. If you can use them and benefit from them, please do. They are what they are, right? But on the other hand, if you cannot do them, or you do not get any benefit from them, then maybe there are other practices would be helpful for you, more helpful. But again, this is so easy. What is hard is the maintenance of it. The recognition is not that difficult, as you saw last night and will continue to see. The recognition is not that difficult because emptiness is the nature of the mind. It's nothing you have to manufacture. Like this is it, right? Like this. Everybody fully aware and present? I mean, you don't have to manufacture awareness, do you? It's right here. Right? Now, to recognize that that's what it is, and start cultivating this rather than cultivating thoughts all the time and emotions and issues, right? This takes some intention, this takes some repetition, this takes some consistency of practice to break the addiction. Again, the ancients didn't know about the terminology of addiction, right? In our very unhappy society, in our very, very unhappy society, in our very, very unhappy society in which there is so much emotional suffering, I mean, addiction is epidemic, right? I mean, if you haven't been in rehab, like where you been? Right? Now, I say that just for us to note that addiction is so commonplace. Now, why is that? So again, but we know, right? And I'm sure there are people in this room who know that even you can have a very serious addiction and you can come into recovery, right? Everybody knows that, right? And that is proof that we can break addictions, and most of us are just simply addicted to ourselves, to our stuff, to our stories. It's really, again, the masters, don't write about it that way, but I think, in modern parlance, I think that's a good way of understanding. We're just addicted. Like we're addicted to our cell phones, and we're addicted to our computers, and we're addicted to stimulation. We're just addicts. Right? And when we're invited to stop and to put it all down and just be present, it's like, what are you talking about? What? I can't do that. Right? And if you ever talk to an addict who's actively using and talking about a life without their substance, they'll look at you the same way. What? What are you talking about? When you're addicted, it's hard to imagine a life of meaning and purpose and happiness without your substance. And for many people, it's the same thing with our addiction to our thoughts and our feelings and our issues and our stories and our dramas and our melodramas. It's like, well, if I didn't have any of that, I mean, what would life be about? What would I talk to people about? Right? Well, we might talk less. And might just enjoy being with people. Just finish by saying again, there are many people who are just uncomfortable with silence. They always have to be talking. Whenever you're with them, they have to talk. Right? And when there's silence in the conversation, they immediately start talking. Doesn't matter what kind of nonsense they're talking about, because they're uncomfortable with silence. They don't even know it, but there's an internal uncomfortableness. That's got to, there's this need to fill up the space. But in this tradition, we're learning to notice the space and relax in the space. And finding the space is quite enjoyable. Right? But this is very different. So let us continue on. So, just coming to the song, we know that the mind was an instant chatter, a hopping, skipping, of jumping about. Everybody's been on retreat, we know about that. And we're looking into the origin of the mind, etc., etc. Basically, we want to know, where does the mind come from? How is the mind in the present? and where does it go? These are the things you're watching the mind to know. But I want to add today a very important thing, because really this is where we get in much trouble. So you want to deeply see the essence of your mind, which is that it has this empty, non-thing quality to it, that is open, it is spacious, but it's not a thing. There is not one thing you can say about this that in any way accurately identifies what this is. It cannot be identified. I mean, I can only say, oh, it's this, right? But that's as good as it gets. Masters in the past have shouted, have hit sticks, have done all kinds of things to go, it's this. It also, again, please notice, has this wondrous quality of luminosity. It lights up everything, right? It lights up wherever you turn it. You turn your gaze to a thought, and immediately the thought reveals its true nature. It is empty too. It disappears. You turn your lucidity, your clarity of mind onto your issues, your feeling, and look right at it. Immediately, it will reveal, just by that gaze, that there is nothing there. It's just a mental fabrication. Emotions and feelings, just sensations in the body-mind. That's all. So when you turn this mind, it has this incredible quality. Again, to understand those and to realize those qualities gives you a very different relationship to mind and phenomena, right? But if there is one piece of phenomena that we have our most trouble with, it is what? Thoughts, right? So we have to investigate thoughts, okay? Which means in your meditation, after you have stabilized yourself in single point of concentration, the breath, you've quieted the mind, you've calmed the mind, now you look at thoughts. What is a thought? Where do they arise from in the mind? Where do they go? Right? What is the mind like when it is peaceful and restful? What is the mind like when there are a lot of thoughts? Is it really any different when you look right at it? Right? Is that clear? So you're first investigating, you're getting this spacious mind, and then you are looking at thoughts. Looking right at them. Again, they're occurring in your mind. You don't have to go far. You can go anywhere. You can do it here, you can do it there. This is the nice thing about this practice. You don't need any technology, right? Just do it. So you look into your mind. There's a thought. What is it? Look right at it. Where does it come from? Where does it go? What is its nature when I look right at it? What is a thought? Is it a thing? Remember? Is it an entity? Is it a solid thing? And when I look right at it, or does it just disappear because its nature is empty? So you have to know this. When you know the nature of thoughts, like you know the nature of mind, you will not be fooled by them. Well, I can't say that. You will be less fooled by them. And if you do this consistently over time, you will be less and less fooled by them. This is how the mind of a sentient being becomes the mind of a Buddha. It is the same mind, but its relationship through all the phenomena of the mind is radically different. And so therefore, the opportunity for a radically new repertoire of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions can now be developed. Is that clear? So he says, persevere in your careful inquiry, examining the mind until you reach a positive conclusion that it is empty, pure, and utterly inexpressible, that it is a non-entity and free of birth and death, coming and going. He said, do not be fooled by the arid assertions and metaphors of others, such as mind is emptiness. These things are worse than useless. Until you know the answer yourself, such statements tend to bring doubt and hesitation to the mind. And then he explains why. And coming back to the third Dzogchen Rinpoche, in his section on searching in the mind, remember he says, in short, investigate the mind that you are searching for and then turn your attention back to the mind that is doing the searching. You will then behold the mind in its original state and see that it has no identifiable essence at all. Until this has actually come to pass, you should repeat this process of examination over and over again. And then in another section on this investigation, he says, continue this process until you determine that consciousness or mind awareness lacks inherent existence, has no basis or root, while it nevertheless knows and perceive. Right, Bill? That's what Bill said. Nothing there, and yet something knows. Right? Something's perceiving. But when I look to see what it is, it's not a thing. What a miracle. Likewise, the subjective mind itself cannot be identified either. It has no essence that one can point to and say, this is it. Hence, there is no place where the mind goes, nor is there a mind that goes somewhere. As before, continue this process until you've determined that empty awareness neither comes nor goes. Now, when he talks about the subjective mind, I think he's talking about self, the mind that we identify with ourself. And we'll get into that a little bit tonight. There might be some confusion. That's just, I think it's just interesting. In a lot of these traditional texts, the investigation, even though it's not true, investigation into self is certainly part of it, but it's primarily into the mind. But my sense is, because these societies were not that the subjective mind wasn't present, but the I, me, my mind. I think we live in a society and a culture where the I, me, my mind, the self-mind and all its attributes, is so cultivated from early childhood that it is much more pernicious an experience in our minds than I think traditionally, because, again, a lot of times in these texts, seeing into the nature of self and there is no self is part of just a bunch of things that you're deconstructing. Well, I think we can speak for Americans. If there are people here from other cultures, you can speak for your culture. I think the identification with self is so strong that's why it needs its own. So we'll work on that one tonight. Okay. So are you clear about your practice today? Again, do not be discouraged. Again, we are used to going this way, following the thought, following the thought, following the thought. It might even be hard for us to turn our necks, which means turn our gaze to look in. That's what it means to look in. So don't be discouraged. It takes some practice. On the other hand, don't be lazy. In other words, don't give in to your discouragement or that you're not getting it right away. Okay? Everyone here has the capacity to do this. Is there anybody who doubts that? Please say so. In the 5 hindrances, the 5th hindrance is doubt. We actually did an intensive on the 5 hindrances last year. And those who are in it will remember doubt. Along with, all the emotions of attachment, aversion, and anger, etc. Doubt. So again, to doubt the validity of the teachings that you've been giving, and as important, to doubt your own capacity to practice and realize the teachings, this is a significant hindrance that will prevent you from having realization. Nobody should doubt it. Everybody in this room has the capacity, because this is, you don't have to climb a mountain. You don't have to have a PhD. Actually, if you don't have a PhD, you're probably in better shape. Is that clear? Yes?
I understand the instruction about turning and looking at thoughts. That question of turning and looking at the mind and then asking who's looking,
okay.
Is that something you were saying you're talking about?
No, this is a little bit what I talked about last night. And so the actual practice, right? In a meditative round, first you stabilize yourself in a single point of concentration, right? Then you raise the question, whatever question you're investigating, and then you direct the mind in the direction you want. Okay. Now you can work it. There's kind of two ways of working it. You can work it, the examination, until you feel there's some kind of resolution. You've come to the end and you kind of know something. And then you, as I said last night, then you just rest there. Because at that point, things are more open and spacious, right? And you just relax there. Okay? But even better, meaning it's more complete, is to, once you've kind of in the direction of your investigation, let's say you're investigating thoughts, and like we've said, and you've come to the conclusion, there's nothing there, they don't come from anywhere, they don't go over there, just right. It's all empty, and okay. Now, but then what is investigating? What is this that's investigating, asking the question? It's a very interesting question. What is this? Is this the investigatory mind? Right? Is this, So you just kind of turn and just look at that. And again, you'll see what's there. And then you rest. Okay? But, and again, we'll talk tomorrow, probably we'll talk more about natural resting, which is a very strong component of this practice. So is everybody clear on, and again, in your resting, you do your best to hold it. Not like, that's not resting. But like, you're just very alert and awake and just resting in that place. Again, it doesn't mean there aren't thoughts arising, but you're not grabbing, okay? Again, when that stuff starts up again, right, and you find yourself moving toward, right, just begin again. Right? Watching the thoughts, the lion's gaze, just look at them. Okay? So, and this is, over and over. It's not like, like you get it once. So this capacity to not only see into the nature of the mind and thoughts, etc., and self, but also to begin to experience this natural mind of awareness, and learning how to recognize it and rest in it is key here. Because that's the mind we want to cultivate. It's because of our misperceptions that we have to do this other work of investigation. Right? But the reason we're doing the investigation is so we understand, so we're no longer fooled, though therefore I can be more and more resting in my natural mind throughout the day. Because I'm like the lion. Right? We want to be like the lion. Right? With that kind of dignity. And not always getting just, as we said, we're just always pulled into pettiness, aren't we? It's embarrassing, isn't it, Robbie? How petty we are. I mean, most of our thoughts and our emotions and our, right? They haven't probably, developed past 13-year-old or something? That's for those of us who have grown up. We're probably, that part of us is probably like 13-year-old. It hasn't changed, has it? That just, so we acknowledge that. Okay? Is that clear? But again, this is a developmental thing. It has to be done over. You can't be lazy. You can't do it 5 times. Say, oh, I understand my mind is empty, thoughts are empty, you know. The addiction, remember the addiction? Anybody here know anybody in recovery? Right? Okay. What do they say? One day at a time? What? Every day? You got to work your program, right? Okay. This is the same thing. Because if you don't work your program, if you don't work your Dharma program, the habit energies will just, you know, that's what's strong, right? Our belief in the solidity of our thoughts, of our feeling, of our issue, we have been working it, how long, Robbie?
62
Right. Can you see? And we've worked it very diligently, haven't we? I mean, we have really worked it quite seriously. So it is, you know, that's cause and effect. So we understand that's, you know, oh, yeah. Lots of causes have created an effect. Now I'm trying to turn the boat, right? But the boat's not a little kayak. You know, it's not going to just go like that. It's like a big ocean liner, our karma. But again, if we continually do it, it will turn. I mean, it's just guaranteed because it's cause and effect. But we have to, you know, the more causes we make, which means the more we practice, you know, the more the transformation. I mean, it's that simple. Good. Good. So we're finally on schedule. It's 12 o'clock. So we do have a half hour for walking meditation and see, habit energy. I brought my umbrella with me today. Just to go. It looks beautiful. So please enjoy your walking, enjoy your practice afternoon, your solitary practice, and we'll continue with these teachings tonight.